Well, we recorded a wonderful podcast today, so I think I'm going to spend my allocated time mostly to talk about that a little bit and then highlight some key points. In terms of just ongoing things, I don't have updates on COVID or Ebola. Those of you who've been following health news have seen that there's a cyclosporiasis outbreak in Maryland. Outbreak is kind of a hard word here because we only have like 30 or 40 cases. The interesting part why I'm bringing this up is that we had a party last week at work and a bunch of us got sick after the party. I don't think that that's what we had. We probably just had some kind of virus. Even one of our dogs had diarrhea. But keep an eye on this. Cyclosporiasis is a parasitic-like infection. It's not an actual quote-unquote parasite. It's a one-cell organism similar to blastocystis, Giardia, and other things. Mostly presents with watery diarrhea, but it can linger. That's why I'm bringing this up. So if you have diarrhea that's passing and it's not passing, you need to check that out because it could be this organism. That's easy to treat, relatively speaking, not a huge deal, unless you're immune compromised. So if somebody's immune compromised severely, like HIV, advanced form, advanced cancer, this could lead to some serious complications. Outside, don't worry about this, but do pay attention. That's all in terms of clinical. What I'm going to do is let me talk about the podcast. So Janet and I just did a podcast about this book with a very good friend of mine, Geeta Maker-Clark. Geeta is from University of Chicago. She's been there for a very long time at the Pritzker School of Medicine at Chicago University, and she's an expert in a variety of things. She's expert in food as medicine. The book is pre-print, so I have a copy that was sent to me earlier just so that we can record the podcast. But you can pre-purchase it on Amazon. I just pre-purchased Audible, and it's a very different book. It's more of a philosophical book about how to get better, and it's very powerfully practical. A lot of the books are listing conditions and acupuncture for pain and very specific directions. This one is kind of returns us to the roots of our health a lot more and in a very practical way. I'm going to give you a couple of basic things. Some of them you know. For example, the forest bathing, of course, you've heard about. We've done multiple forest bathing. Well, as much as we could on a screen, right? We would have a forest bathing coach or facilitator, and he would or she would walk us through that. Of course, you don't have to sit in front of a computer to do that. You can just walk into any natural settings close to you. But the way Gita talks about all this is very profound. So talking about the nature, there's a concept of spanda, and it's coming from Ayurveda, but it's basically an energetic flow that's constantly with us and that we can tune into. In Chinese medicine, it's present. In Ayurveda, it's present. I think in any healing tradition, there is a sense of kind of a general flow of energy. And if we get off of the rhythm of our flow, we can get sick. And so this is a concept of encouraging us to go back to it. But I'm going to read you a couple of things that struck me from the book. So practice, I'll give you a couple of practices that are specific here. Dusking. Return home to your animal body. Pause what you're doing. Became available to dusk. And let the twilight colors bathe your senses. And there's a whole idea of how towards the evening, before we go to sleep, we need to start acknowledging the end of the day. So during the change in the light, the practicing dusking can really help us to start getting ready for sleep. Earthing. Many of you have heard this concept. One of my favorite concepts. I've been practicing earthing, trying to walk barefoot whenever I can on natural surfaces all the time. Do it for about 20 or 30 minutes per day. Garden with bare hands. Receive earth electromagnetic charge through the soil by tending to the earth and community garden or your own path. So very basic concept, but the whole book is filled with it. Each chapter covers large portion. Of course, there's several chapters on food as medicine. Very, very essential how Gita covers some of the topic. Instead of saying, okay, eat Mediterranean or, eat plant-based, she puts it in a very broad, profound philosophical sense. She says, well, Mediterranean diet may not actually work if your ancestry foods were not Mediterranean. And forcing Mediterranean diet or plant-based diet on everybody is a colonization of medicine. And she's unraveling this concept in beautiful ways. If you're from, Indian culture, well, maybe you should eat healthy, but from those foods that are nourishing you. So this concept of nourishment versus nutrition is something she spends a lot of time uncovering. A big chunk of the book is plants as medicine. Notice I didn't say herbs. The herbs is only part of the plants. She fascinatingly describes it's more from perspective of, well, how do you form the relationship? What plants can you grow in your backyard? Which plants are very, very easy to do? Tulsi is, for example, one of the basic Ayurvedic herbs, which apparently can grow in our area quite easily. I didn't even know about that, and it's the book is filled with that. So I'll put the link in a second once I'm done talking about it, so you can pre-order it if you want to. Of course, she's a dancer, so actually has a dance company in Chicago. So of course, there's a whole section on dance. Yeah, I'm excited and scared that my better half is dragging me today to a five rhythm dance, and I think this would be good for my body. So dance is the way she teaches about the dance is not just move; it's much more about move and meditate. So the dance is really the moving meditation that can be good for anybody, regardless of your limitations to the movement. So. I think it's one of the best podcasts we did, Janet. I don't know if you agree, but I feel that way myself. So you can easily get the book wherever. I'll post the comment and let's do Q&A. We have about 10 minutes. Your Q&A does not need to be revolved around the book. Of course, you can ask anything. Remind you, if you're my patient and you want something more specific to me, medical, stay after the meeting at 3 o'clock and we'll have one-on-one time, of course. So while I'm waiting for first question, I'm going to put the link to the book in the chat. All right, it's right here. All right. Yeah, so the name of the book is Medicine for All People, Science and Ancient Wisdom of Revolutionary Healing. And the way she uses the word revolutionary here is to really highlight that the current healthcare system is really not encouraging this very basic concepts of unifying our disruptors in essence. So removing our disruptors to the health. Not enough sleep, not enough nature, not enough movement, not enough paced, slowing down, not enough mindfulness and spirituality in our practice. So and puts it in a very, very practical way of how you can incorporate all these pieces and reclaim your own health. Geeta Maker-Clark. All right. What does the book say about ways of doing earthing in a city? Well, so actually, it doesn't really matter where you do the earthing. I mean, as long as you're not walking on a heavily sprayed lawn or something, and you're walking on a natural surface, it doesn't matter, right? The earthing, it's a discharging, it's an exchange of electromagnetic field with the earth. Doesn't matter whether you're inside the city or outside of the city, it wouldn't make a difference. I would just make sure that the surface you walk on is safe. Don't walk on the glass, or if the asphalt probably not as good as just the dirt that's right outside of your house. But it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to look for a fancy park, for example, or big forest or anything like that. Good question. Right. Heritage diets. Yeah, so the heritage diets, I like the term ancestry eating, but it kind of doesn't matter which term you use. So this is thanks, Janet, for posting that. So the idea here is you take the best from your ancestry foods or how your ancestors were eating, and then you adjust somewhat to the more modern way of looking about it. For example, let's say you need a higher protein intake, but your ancestry diet is more plant-based. Okay, well, you can modify that. You can supplement some of that with additional sources of protein. So you obviously don't want to blindly subscribe to any particular concept. You do need to self-adjust it. Maybe you do need to run this by your provider, your nutritionist, your doctor, but the principles are there. The foods that we've been eating for generations are generally the most nourishing ones. And, there are changes. Some of the foods may not be as nutritious as they were 100 years ago. So you do need to think of some of those things. But again, it doesn't remove the whole concept of heritage or ancestry eating or diets. Natural services in Park City may expose you to excessive dog poop, needles, etc. Well, yeah, so keep an eye on that, right? Although, frankly, I'm not all that worried. You can always wash your feet. I'm a little bit less, I guess, stuck on hygienic things like this. We live with two dogs who poop in a house all the time. We try to clean as much as we can. But but the point well taken, Jennifer. Of course, try to pick cleaner space if you can. So no, so Kathy, this would not work because your home probably is sitting on a cement or some kind of a brick foundation, which isolates you from electricity of the earth, unfortunately. So it won't work. You do need to. I mean, there could be something that, I mean, you probably, if you have a basement and the basement has some open areas that are pure dirt, that would of course work. But I think cement does isolate electricity completely. So if you have a brick or cement foundation that's fully encapsulating the house, then no. It's a good question, actually. I'm not a big fan of all those earthing equipments, like an earthing mats and all this stuff. Do they work? Maybe, but like, why? Why would you pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for pieces of equipment when walking outside is still costs nothing? Again, if you're hygienically afraid of stepping on something, okay, well, keep an eye on where you step and wash your feet when you get back home. I think that's my answer. Okay, there's lots of foods in Maryland now. However, there's no recall. Yeah, correct. So I think this because they don't know yet. My understanding, Ron, is that they're sort of trying to investigate this flare because it's quite unusual. Believe it or not, cyclospora is not a very common uh, organism to infect suddenly lots of people. It's fraction of the problem compared to something like a norovirus or rotavirus, all of those common viruses that cause diarrhea. I'm pretty sure we all had a viral infection just because most of us recovered in a day or two. Cyclospora tends to last. That's a big differentiation factor. It's usually similar to one of those traveler's diarrhea where you pick up Giardia, blastocystis, where you go in and you have diarrhea for prolonged periods of time. But it actually can cause quite severe, more complex complications like severe fatigue for weeks. Yeah, so I don't know how to address your direct question. I don't know which foods we shouldn't be eating. I don't think anyone, that hasn't been published that I've seen. Walking on the sand on the beach, love it. Yep, that's one of my favorite activities. Okay, thank you, Steph, for posting about Fred's most recent offering. Thank you. Oh, there's one other thing I need to share with everybody. National Academies of Sciences in September will have an event. It's called The Ocean Knows, a musical narrative. It's a fascinating event about his basically the fact that there's a strong evidence now that ocean has a memory. So I'm putting this link, and so if anybody's interested in a topic like this, check it out. So you need to register. It's free event, September 10th in the evening. Does lying on Earth have some energy exchange? Yes. In fact, some people think it's a stronger because you have a larger body surface. In fact, she has several pages in the book talking about lying down on Earth and how it was important for her own survival of early career in medicine and residency, particularly when she was overworked and she needed time to compensate. In fact, there's this really interesting uh, piece. She was in a very difficult working week. She just went outside, laid down, but she laid down face down, and some resident noticed, start screaming, called emergency service because they thought that she passed out. She was just laying down, doing an energy exchange with Earth, and yet outside world interpreted as if she just passed out. So yeah, um, lying on Earth is great. I try to practice this on a regular basis whenever I remember. One thing is that probably why I love this book so much. This concept is very simple, but many of them, and we practice them all the time, but sometimes we just forget them. Sometimes I just kind of flow through the day and forget to do a lot of things that I know are very nourishing for me, but it would just not be in my field of awareness. So the book is definitely encouraging this. All right. Well, we have about a minute left. I promised Angela 40 minutes, so I'm going to make sure we'll give it to her. I don't see any other questions.
I can give it back to you if I manage
No,
to
no, but
use my
I
time
don't. Oh yeah,
wisely.
we can
Yeah,
always end a little bit early and just if there's any questions to you or me. Well,
right.
thanks so much for being here. I'm not echoing, so even though you're just upstairs from me, but still.
Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to be here again. I'm invited to talk about the topic that is really, really dear to me, and I can share a little bit about my professional path, and it will be clear why. So the topic is fascia, and what prompted this was the I assumed it was the recent article in New York Times that talks about the discovery of a new organ, kind of a new system in the body, talks about fascia and interstitium. And let me share well, actually, yeah, the articles, if you remember, it's kind of made in a very interesting way. It's not an article, it's a presentation made with a beautiful, although not very precise, not very biologically precise, I would say, animation. It's just kind of like the slides that something is animated on the screen, and then you have text. And I want to kind of begin let me see if I can share screen quickly. Um, I gotta say I don't teach anywhere really. I don't make presentations. So you're like a little my lab here. I don't even know how long it's gonna be, so I asked Misha to let me start a little bit early. But we'll see. I love doing that. So thanks for inviting me and don't be hard on me. So if I share screen. Hmm. And now I don't actually see. I just practiced and I don't see my screen. Okay, here.
We don't see your screen either, so I
Yeah.
don't think you started yet.
How about now?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, so this is and now I need to go back to that. Uh, Okay. Anyway, I'm not gonna run this as a, so this is one of the first slides, the very first slide in that article, and it says, some discoveries change the way we view the human body. And I'm a little bit emotional about the whole article, and that's why I'm like really passionate. Maybe that's kind of an obstacle for me doing this presentation because I can get emotional. But I do want to say that this is not true. This is the most of the world, actually. Everybody who, comes from traditions of yogic medicine, Chinese medicine, osteopathic medicine, all kinds of body work. Um, it did not change their view of human body because it did not say anything new to them. So kind of like a bit emotional premise here. And I prepared my own slides, so I'll go to them and let me just make sure they play from the start. Can you see that okay? Mish, can you see that okay? The screen? Can somebody confirm? Okay. So my background, why I'm really interested in the fascia that much, because in the fascia a lot of things converge. and my experience actually converged in the fascia really well. I My first education was in biology. I have a master's degree in biochemistry, and I used to work in academia in research for a few years in Russia and here. And ironically, my last research was, and last publication was made on a some molecules that inside of the cell are responsible for the movement. So this is not fascia because fascia is everything outside of the cell, but it's also has a lot to do with the movement. So my last 2 years in the science were sitting in a dark room, looking in the electronic microscope and looking at those fibers, molecules in a cell, taking pictures and trying to figure out like how they work, which is very novel kind of thing to do on one hand. On the other hand, I quit after that, after I stopped working on that project. And the reason why I quit is it just occurred to me that, the way we do science, the way we do our tools is very reductionistic. We look at the smaller and smaller and smaller parts, and we're doing it actually in the Western science for hundreds of years already. And yeah, and it's just I was more curious, maybe subconsciously, even intuitively, like I just want to know how the whole thing works, and how nature works. I went to acupuncture school. It was a bit kind of excruciating for my mind because there's a totally different paradigm, and it was very interesting, very um, I forgot the word, but it's like pushed me a lot intellectually and in many other ways. How it could be the view of the science actually. In Chinese medicine, its own science. But the view is very different. So I also my English got better because you don't get much English training in a dark room, um, hiking the microscope. So a lot of things could happen, and I started practicing acupuncture. And I thought I would love herbs because I was biochemist, but I loved working with the hands because hands were telling me so much, and it was just interesting, kind of unexpected discovery. And I loved acupuncture, although acupuncture is only a small part of Chinese medicine, and I'll mention it later. And then years later, I kind of made a little bit of like a turn around, and I got interested in somatic work, and that brought me to back to nervous system. Even though I know I don't like to separate systems, but okay, nervous system. We know what we're talking about here, and how our lifestyle, our emotions, our body experiences, trauma, stress, they affect our body, and what happens there, and how it affects our body. It actually affects a lot of fascia. So, fascia is a largest tissue in the body. It's a part of the connective tissue. It holds a lot of water. And in Chinese medicine, we really acknowledge that everything in the body moves and moves with the fluids. So you can see how I got interested in all of this and why fascia is um, really fascinating for me. By the way, the word fascia comes from the Latin word to bundle together, to keep together. And word fascinating actually doesn't come from the same root. I have wondered. So in Western medicine, fascia was kind of like they knew there's such a tissue, but it never drew any interest in all those, I don't know, but physicians first illegally and then legally, and they prep the body to study what kind of organs were made of and how the body functions. They they were looking for important stuff like a brain, bones, heart, and things like that. And there was a bucket on the floor by the table, and all the fascia went into the bucket. So we kind of basically put that in a waste, the largest organ in our body. Not only in our body, it's actually every single animal and plants that they have similar type of tissue. Um, so, and when I went to the bucket, also, it's kind of like interesting to uh, note that, of course, everything was chemically treated. It was in formaldehyde, and it looked very different from living tissue. And that's eventually how Western scientists became more aware about what fascia is doing is they started to look at the finally in the last 10 years they kind of started to look like what fascia, how fascia looks in the living body. And fascia looks in the living body just as different as like you there's a fascia is so fascinating you can actually compare it to so many things. It's like, for example, a spider web. When you clean the room, you kind of, swipe the spider web. It's kind of like these little things in your fingers, and it's just like looks like trash. Again, trash. But the living spider web, it looks absolutely amazing, right? It looks like a healthy, just build. It's stretchy. It's just like marvelous. It has these shapes and it has um, the water drops attached to this like in the places. So that's one of the way we can think of fascia is that, and that's how much we knew is like a dust first, right? And then we finally started to look at the living tissue. So, but anyway, what it is, we can also compare it to a little bit like to a lasagna. So it's a lot of layers. It wraps, it's a very 3D, like a lasagna kind of 3D. It's connective tissue, wraps every muscle, every organ, every nerve, every vessel, like every single thing. It wraps even each cell, kind of. And not each muscle, like it bundles muscles inside of it. It's like it's pretty much everywhere. Um, so if we remove from the body every single tissue except fascia, and we can like model the body standing still, every single person will be still recognizable because every single wrinkle, every single feature, facial feature will be preserved. It will be just looking as a ghost, like white kind of ghostly look. I didn't get this picture, but you can find those pictures online easily. So it could be very thick, like tendons, like your Achilles tendon, for example, is one of the thickest, or ITB band, that's fascia, or it could be similar to like a sarrowrap, or even thin as a spider web is said, and even much more going down to micro level than that. So the layers, the fibers, this built from collagen and elastin. So, like let's say the dough um, in lasagna, it's like a collagen web, and the cheese that keeps uh, lasagna pasta sheets together, kind of it's stretchy elastin. It's like a cheese, and then we have sauce, and sauce. Good lasagna should be very juicy, right? So the sauce has lots of water, and what holds the water is hyaluronic rich ground substance. Hyaluronic, it's another like little fiber-like molecule. So that's the sauce, and also it has a lot of other things like meat, spinach, mushrooms in your lasagna, fibroblasts that produce collagen, other cells that produce other molecules. It's pierced with the nerves, big nerves, and also small, tiny nerve endings. It has immune cells. They're not guests, they're actually residents there, and fat cells. So that's your stuff in lasagna. So because it's so rich in sensory receptors, and it's kind of like also we in Western medicine, we learned relatively recently, it's probably the body's largest sensing organ. It kind of can include skin there a little bit too. Um, So what does it do? Like it's basically all your um, Superwoman, super whatever, all superpowers, kind of all in one. It holds together, right? Everything. It transmits force, and it's kind of really interesting that force in Chinese medicine, that's qi. Chi is not mysterious substance, it's force. So it transmits force. It's like a sweater. You pull, like a knitted sweater, you pull one part and it pulls like everything. It's called tensegrity. Maybe you can remember those like a toys. You apply pressure on one part of the thing and like everything is affected. That's how it works. It stores and releases. It has this springy kind of quality in that tissue. So it enables us jump, run, bounce, kind of like like open and come back. So all the tissues of that lasagna, they slide and glide. That is how the body can move, basically without sticking. Well, honestly saying, we do stick a lot, and we'll talk about it. It moves fluids, and that's when in that article there was a connection that, oh, maybe it's like Chinese medicine meridians, because they discovered that they move not just like this, but move more like very slowly but intentionally in certain kind of pathways. So it senses, it's a sensory organ. It even can contract on its own, but those are kind of more details. It's the interesting quality of this tissue is it's it when we move, it gets softer, and when we don't move, it gets harder. Then it's kind of liquid and kind of a solid thing at the same time. It responds to pressure and responds to temperature. If you remember these experiments when you were kids with the starch and water, right? That quality. Like you don't press, it's a liquid, you start pressing, it's solid thing kind of there. And that's why it's so adaptable. So it adapts to everything, all the needs that all the movement of our body, all temperature, whatever. It's kind of homeostasis. It's not just in the blood; it's in the fascia. Um, so speaking of, actually, that's another slide too. So we speaking of the health, fascia can be happy, fascia can be unhappy. Healthy fascia is hydrated, has a lot of water, but not too much, because too much water is stagnation. It could be, in a situation like edema, it's too much water in one place. It's also not healthy, and fascia can hold that, but it's when fascia is not healthy. It could be overhydrated in a small kind of in areas. So but healthy fascia is well hydrated. It's stretchy. It's springy. It's sliding, gliding. It's soft. So what can happen, wrong? We can, if we don't move, if we're stressed, and it could be short periods of time or chronic, it becomes stiff. It dries, especially over the time. Uh, it gets sticky. It gets tangled. So actually, those molecules become less straight. They shape changed. So it becomes like a baked lasagna that's was in the oven for too long, or like you can think of a jerky or something like that. It can also be in the less commonly, it can be too loose, and there's something that we know as hypermobility. It's a genetic predisposition for the collagen to be slightly different because of mutations. So the tissues, the fascia can be a little bit too loose, unstable. It doesn't hold that well. Um, and people become more prone to injuries. And so in the hypermobile people in EDS, actually, this may be happening, too loose, and it's a spectrum. It could be a little degree or a larger degree, but also at the same time, it can become stiff as well because of stress, for example, or pain. Um, so that what makes it feel good or feel bad, or the way it expresses being happy or not happy. So what we knew before, what, for example, Chinese medicine knew. So long before all this, tissue preparations, Chinese medicine described the how body functions. It functions like a nature. There is nature, like water in the nature everywhere, and it runs through the body in um, in water pathways. The body is everywhere, even in the desert, right? But then it kind of organizes itself in the creeks, rivers, and that's what the movement in the body. That's what circulation in the body is. And actually, this is not that's not chi. That's either blood, different types of fluids. In Chinese medicine, recognized plasma, we recognized synovial fluids, we recognized, they didn't call them that, but there were different types of viscosity function. And there wasn't even the organ, triple heater. I don't know if some of you maybe get acupuncture, maybe you've heard of it, Sanjiao, that has no form basically. And now we can, okay, this is really what the functions, what we now discovered as interstitium, as a all fascia combined that can move and communicate and move the fluids. So in Chinese medicine, we knew that, and it's not a question of mysterious qi. Qi is force. We can never find qi. We can see qi. We can know what it does. It moves fluids. Fluids in a standing water, they're not moving. There's no qi. Even a little bit of qi will move them because of the evaporation. Actually, a character from qi is the evaporation. So because sun has qi, temperature has qi. So qi is yin, sorry, yang power, and fluids are yin. And fluids are extremely important in fluid metabolism is extremely important in Chinese medicine. That's what we try to um, heal with all Chinese medicine tools, acupuncture, herbs, and everything. Okay, what body workers knew, and not body work, just actually physicians, osteopathic physicians, and everybody else, rolfing, massage therapy, myofascial release, yoga, in addition to Chinese medicine, I'm just continuing the trend, Feldenkrais, Alexander, whatever not. Except maybe physical therapists, they were a little bit more kind of looking to muscles and bones, and they only recently started to talk about fascia more, and they kind of, oh, we discovered something so cool, and it's just like okay, okay, guys. But yes, all these specialists, they not only worked directly with their hands, uh, heal, to use fascia, to address fascia in healing. They taught about fascia. They taught in the books, they taught in the lectures, and the only people who didn't recognize that were like, I don't know who exactly were they were, like people who do hardcore anatomy and physiology in the academic um, field. They would say, no, we don't have enough evidence. So this is all your empirical things, and there is no such a thing as interstitium as organ. But now they caught up in the past few years. Interestingly, how they caught up is, well, one of the doctors in France started to put like a little camera into the hand, and he just videotaped actually how fascia moves when it's not dehydrated, when it's in a full functional mode, fluid filled, and everything was just really amazing there on those videos. And then, some scientists recently discovered that when they prepared some tissues and they looked at tattoo ink, they found tattoo ink very far from the tattoos. And it's like, wait a minute, that should not be like that. And I put this slide here because those like a little dots in the center, and those are actually tattoo ink. Um, so yeah, so here we kind of get this idea. This is the what really kind of revived this idea of the importance of fascia is that it's a circulatory system. And all the fluids in the body, like we speak in Chinese medicine, it's not just the meridians. It's a lot of actually meridians that don't have points. Everything in the body has a lot of action, a lot of movement. Fascia kind of organized in the with the planes. Some of these planes, along those planes, the fluids are moving faster, just like they're moving faster in the creeks compared to paddles, and then they become rivers, and it's just matter of space, and fascia allows that space. And there are some studies that really pinpoint like that movement kind of follows the meridians, but this is not really important. What's important is that movement itself. And why we even need to talk about here about different systems. Like we have blood in the body that moves blood, brings blood to every single cells through the capillaries, and then it kind of starts to ooze into the tissues, then interstitial fluids. That's what our interstitial movement. It's very slow because it delivers everything to each cell. It needs to slow down. Fascia loves slowing down. And then again, it starts collecting back into the lymphatic um, vessels and kind of brings it back to the blood. So it's kind of a water metabolism that those pictures that you all drew in the kindergarten, or the water metabolism, like in the nature. That's the cycle of water in the nature. We have that cycle in the body. So the only thing that the interstitium doesn't have as a circular system, it doesn't have vessels, but the movement is there along the tissues. So we're almost here. So there's a big kind of thing about how fascia nerve system is connected, but I just want to be really short here. So under stress,
Jill, I
yeah,
do you mean to change slides?
yes.
We're still seeing original first slide. We're not seeing any other slides.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah, I'm
keep
changing slide,
I texted you about that.
but I have a full screen, so that's why I'm not seeing your text.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, haha.
Can
Wait,
you
let me go
just
back.
maybe quickly run through the slides? Because we're still seeing the New York Times.com.
Oh, oh no. Uh-huh. Okay, let me. What do you see now?
Same.
Same?
Hmm. If you want,
Uh,
you can maybe you can email me the slides and then I'll run them
hmm.
if it's easier. Or airdrop them. Now we're seeing your Zoom screen. It
Hmm.
says
That's,
join
uh,
meeting.
that's really interesting. Yes, I've been, been showing slides. Um, I think I would. Ooh, I don't know. I have only 15 minutes left, and I was kind of wrapping up and planning to do the sensing practice. Um, okay, I'm lost here a little bit.
Why don't you email me the slides? I'll run them quickly. And then
Okay.
stop sharing. I don't know why you have it looks like you may have two screens parallel, or that you simply when you click the share, you didn't share your screen. Probably what happened. So unshare,
I don't
cancel sharing,
share scaring. Okay.
cancel sharing. Okay. Now click share again.
Did I cancel it?
Yes. Click share again.
Uh-huh.
When you see the share, the first thing you're going to see is it'll offer you to share different things. You have to pick your full screen. You
Mm.
shared you shared specific window. That's the
What
problem.
about how about now?
You're not sharing anything yet. Okay, now it says keep fascia healthy, bones, acts, practical
Yeah,
teach.
okay, let me just go through this.
There we go. Okay, good.
Okay, so that's lasagna. A quick review. This is I was talking about like a Spider-Man and all things that fascia can do. Here was my slide about um, how does it feel healthy or not. This was about Chinese medicine and the flow of fluids along the meridians and between the meridians as well. This was a slide about all the people who knew about this. This is slide with like little dots in the pink tissue. That's tattoo ink flowing far away from the tattoo location. So this was the slide about just how everything works together. Okay, this was the slide what fascia does under stress and what it does when it. I think that's where I was. So with the stress, you know, our nervous system sends signal to the body to become self-protective, fight, flight. That it's a muscle movement, but also fascia kind of get into that shape. And under continuous stress, it changes the properties and it kind of retains that shape. It's a body armor and the bracing and becomes chronic. And there is, because fascia feeds the information about interception to the brain constantly, we become that shape, basically. We hold that shape for a long time and our tissues become less fluid and we become less healthy. And that's like emotions are coming all through all of that, making that impressions too. And emotion has the word motion in there, of course. So tissues stiffen over the time. And when we feel safe, when we use all mindfulness practices and we engage our vagus nerve, fascia softens, our breathing opens, deepens, tissue starts gliding. We feel more in coherence in the flow, and our regulation kind of returns not only on like a mind level, but in the body on the body level. And this is the side again, kind of to reinforce this idea that we are a circulatory system, continuous, you know, just like in the nature. And there could be areas of stagnation, could be areas of dryness that disrupt the flow, and we need to take care of that. And that's the part of the natural medicine. So how many things we can do? We can do a lot of things, just a few. We need to move for fascia to be healthy. We don't need to move too much. We don't need to overtrain ourselves. Small movements, regular movements throughout the day in many directions. That's the important. Like if we use only one set of muscles, like in running, that's not going to really help fascia that much. We need to move just like monkeys. We need to do different kinds of things in all different planes. Anything with a slow, nice pressure, foam rolling, massage, all kinds of body work actually going to be very healthy. We need to bounce, spring, walk, that kind of movement, like it measures your vibration plates. Really good. We need to use heat and cold strategically, just like heat and cold, exist in the nature. Alternating heat and cold, they're really healthy here. Because remember, fascia responds to heat and cold. It responds to different forces, including heat and cold. We need to eat well to support collagen and other molecules, parts of fascia. We need to hydrate. We need to hydrate with the movement. If we're just sitting and drinking, we're just paying. But if we sip water throughout the day, and in Chinese medicine, we place a lot of significance on eating foods that contain liquids and eating soups, for example, because we absorb that a little bit slower and it goes more into tissues. Stretching, of course, stretching slowly. The slower we stretch, the better for fascia. Hanging, decompressing, so uh, applying different forces to the body. Calming nervous system and addressing stagnation. If we feel stuck in physically or emotionally, we need to address that because that's going to be affected in the fascia. So this this is all of the theory, and I knew it probably would be too much. Anyway, for a little bit of practice, a sensing practice, I mean, we can just flow into that really easily and directly. So I just want to invite you to take a breath, sit comfortably, preferably feel your feet, place your feet on the ground. Feel your body in general, just feel the shape of the body. Feel your presence, how you're present in space. Contact with the chair, contact with air. So this all information that your nerves that are situated, located in the fascia are sending to your brain right now. You can place the hand on your arm and start. Remember, when we do all of these things, we're gonna do it kind of slow, very gently, in a very, very kind of small amplitude, very small movements. And if you have a hypermobility, if anyone here, like nothing we do is here unsafe, but of course you need to really check with your body. So we're not gonna pinch the skin, but we're just gonna glide the skin a little bit back and forth. Could be in one direction, in other, in the circles. And the movement you do, like just please, just the minimal micro movements. And if you feel that movement, that's how fascia glides. We are now we're sensing more superficial layers of fascia. Of course, there is more of that gliding is happening inside of the body on every level. But like right now, we're applying a little bit of a force, and your body is absorbing that and responding to that force. And also feel if you like that or not. Like what you just did with a little bit of a gliding, like that's actually touch, self-touch in this case, but that's touch. And just notice, how does it feel? Does it feel pleasant? Does it feel okay? Contact. So next thing we can try to do it with the whole body. We can start swaying, but again, do it like basically no more than maybe like 1-2 inches, kind of one side or the other. Could be from the left to right, just swaying or rocking, sitting comfortably, safe on your sitting bones, and just moving. Let's move the upper body. And as you move the upper body, you can try to notice if your legs are also getting a little bit of an echo of that movement. So you can see how movement travels. It's a subtle thing, but we're doing it really subtle in a subtle way because kind of our body likes it. So if you press your feet into the floor and kind of do a few kind of bouncy with the soft knees, kind of few presses back and forth, up and down, just a little bit, maybe 2, 3, 4 times, very gently, and you stop. And now feel that echo again, kind of the sensation in the whole leg. It's kind of the fluids are kind of, they come to more stillness gradually. And now let's do a bit larger movement. Just raise your arms and stretch them a little bit over the head. Uh, don't overstretch, absolutely no need to overstretch. Actually, the less you do here, the more your fascia feels and likes it. So with the breath, extend that one arm or both, doesn't matter, just a little bit more. Like they often teach us in the yoga, with the breath, just a little bit more, really lovingly, gently. And as you stretch your arms, uh, feel what happens in the legs too. Like we could do it in like standing, of course, kind of do the whole thing, but can feel that too. Like we feel the continuity um, in a subtle way of larger, longer longitudinal planes of fascia. Could do it with the twisting the body. We're not going to do it right now, but you can definitely experiment with the slow twisting. Again, just want to emphasize the slow, gentle, almost micro movement to begin with. A micro movement is going to give your fascia happiness and health. And close your eyes for just 1 second, few seconds, and feel whatever you feel inside. I don't know, I feel a little bit of my heartbeat because I'm at the very end of this presentation, and I hoped I would have more times for questions, so I feel a little bit of a heartbeat. But whatever you feel, any sense inside, this is again just inviting our fascia report to our brain what you are, not even what you're feeling. It's so subtle, like it's like what you are. I am here. I'm present. I'm body. I'm taking this space. I feel okay. Maybe I feel tense somewhere. Maybe I feel a little stagnated somewhere, and I can know all that. And yeah, and the next thing we can just start returning, maybe pressing a little bit your feet, squeezing hands, and coming back and opening our eyes. And I invite you to be in touch with your fashion many times a day. Know what's doing all this work for you, together with you, which is not with you or for you, it's you. And yep, fascia is not a new discovery. It's old truth finally being seen clearly, more clearly, and will be seen even more clearly as we keep discovering new things. It's the whole body is very continuous, fluid, intelligent whole, and chi makes us alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Let's see if we have any questions for you first. So Jennifer's comment is sweet. All right. I don't see any direct questions though. But so Janet is asking to get the slides. So Angela will send the
Yeah, I can
email
send slides
so
too.
that
Yeah.
if anybody wants to come back to them, they're going to be in the chat in the description to the recording. So right. So Chris is joining us next week. And we're also going to have a nature therapy. So forest bathing guide, Ilana Rubin from Kindred Nature. It's going to be timely. I will bring up the book next time again because I'm so in love with it, and I highly recommend you'll read it. So, okay. So at this point, let's end the recording. We'll see everybody next week.